Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show today. My name is Neda Maria Kaizumi, your host, and today I'm delighted to welcome Sander Hoogendoorn, a forward-thinking professional bridging technology leadership and strategic innovation. Over his career, Hoogendoorn has engaged deeply with emerging tech and complex systems, bringing a thoughtful, human-centered lens to a change. In this conversation, we'll dive into how his journey led to AI, his views on AI governance and responsibility, and imagine what the future might hold when constraints are removed. Welcome to the show, Sander.
Thank you.
Well, let's start from the beginning and your path. What first drew you to our technology, and why did you ended up in tech?
That's a good question. So I wrote my first code when I was 10 or 11. It was in 1978 on my dad's pocket calculator, and I've been writing code ever since. I first started to study architecture, actual architecture, but pretty soon I was like, I know I need to do something with computers and computer architecture and writing code. So I switched. So I studied computer science. I graduated in artificial intelligence in 1991. So that was really early on, very different from what it is now. And I've been writing code ever since, and it's still a joy. I still write code every day with my team usually, and I still enjoy it tremendously. It's and I'll probably keep doing this until the end of my life.
That's impressive.
I hope so.
I don't know so many people who started at the age of 10, 11. So you start with coding, then graduated on AI. Which one is the most interesting part for you?
Well, AI is not so AI is an interesting topic, but it's for me it's the thing what we developers do is we solve problems, and sometimes they're technical and sometimes they're more business oriented, but we solve problems, right? And that's what I like. And for me, writing code is a way to express solutions, and I love doing that. I love making it better. And AI is just another tool in my tool chest. For me, it's not something different. It's a tool to get to allow us to solve bigger problems we couldn't solve before. It's a huge topic, and yes, it's going to change a lot. And but I don't see it as something to be afraid of.
And that's great. I love the way you're thinking about AI using as a tool. You said that you have done coding before and then you know architecture, which is extremely good when you want to work with AI because that's kind of a holistic view. So when you want to put things in context for your customer, have you ever challenged them to think responsibly and ethically on AI and then challenge them that why are you making this solution and not that one? Can you elaborate on that?
So I'm the CTO of an e-commerce company, right? And we are using AI to solve a number of business problems. I haven't encountered in our field any problems that you would call an ethical problem, or there's not too much ethical stuff going on at what we do. It's that we're not a government agency, right? So we're an e-commerce company, and we use it to solve problems. It's nothing more than that. So that is not specifically a topic I address.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I was listening to you in the other day in a conference in Amsterdam, and you had a very interesting agile approach to code and test AI functions in the context of system architecture. Can you tell our audience about your approach to code and lead your team?
The way of working we have has evolved from working in agile ways for about 25 years. So first of all, let me stress that agile and Scrum have nothing in common. So for a lot of people, like, yeah, but we do Scrum, so we're agile. No, doesn't mean you're agile. Doesn't mean you do Scrum. Also, the other way around. You can do agile without having anything to do with Scrum, right? So just to get that misunderstanding out of the way. So you don't necessarily need the stuff that comes from Scrum to be agile, right? So we don't have sprints or iterations or whatever you want to call it, because the way we work, we standardized so much and we automated so much that we, with my team, deliver stuff to production about 50 to 80 times per day, meaning it has no something that has a 2-week period has no use to us, because there is nothing that exactly fits a 2-week period. If you release hundreds of times per 2-week period, there's no point in that. Meaning that our cycles are much shorter. That means that every line of code that I write, that I check in, goes through a pipeline, and that pipeline, when everything in that pipeline goes well, and it has a lot of automated tests in there, it ends up in production automatically, right? So that means that if I change something to the website or one of our backend services or whatever I do, it will be in production between now and, let's say, somewhere between 13 and 15 minutes. So I could literally push now and it'd be in production, well, like even before 4 o'clock, right? So it's now 20 to 4. Well, easily, if I don't break the pipeline, right? And that, of course, happens too. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That means, oh, we've forgotten something, or we didn't write enough tests, or, hey, this test fails, why is it failing? Stuff like that. And that's fine, right? That gives us very short feedback cycles, feedback cycles of minutes instead of days or weeks or months or whatever people have. And because of that, we can move pretty fast. For the business, so the business people in iBoot, that means that they also notice, right? So that means that if they see something, we put something in production and it might have a bug, or it's something that they say, oh, could you put it there or there? Could you do it this way or this way? Oh, could you add this or that? Then those are requests that we can actually almost immediately handle, right? So, for instance, if we have bugs in our code, and that happens, of course, it's not necessarily a big failure, because we can just push another version right away, right? So I always use the example of public transport, right? If you're waiting for a bus, and there's a bus every 5 minutes, it doesn't matter when you go to the bus stop, because there's a bus going anyway, right? And if you miss one, it's okay, because the next one comes along in about 5 minutes. However, if there's only one bus every 2 weeks, you better make sure that you catch the bus, right? That's the problem with having longer cycles, is that the longer the cycle is, the more people want to push into it, and the more you get into trouble when you want to release. So actually releasing more often to production makes the cycle shorter, and makes you not have to worry about the fact that, oh, there might be a mistake in there. We'll just repair it and push again, right? So it's a very different approach to it. So as a result, there's a lot of stuff that we actually don't do in our way of working. So we don't have sprints, we don't do anything from Scrum, basically. A lot of people always say, yeah, but you this and this, so you do Scrum. No, I don't care. It doesn't have a name what we do. It's not Scrum, it's not Kanban either. It's something we do. And I'm not very interested whether people can fit it into whatever they think it needs to be fitted in. So it's our way of working, and then people say, yeah, but it doesn't scale, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't care if it scales. I'm not in a business for scaling. I'm in a business to deliver value to our business, right? That's what matters. And I don't care if this works with 500 people. We don't have 500 people. So I always have these interesting discussions with people, like about our way of working. But there's a lot of stuff that we actually don't have. We also don't do retrospectives, for instance, because again, if you have very short cycles, it's much easier to, if something is off, discuss it immediately, right? Or discuss it when it appears. I just got out of a call. We have a weekly knowledge sharing session, and that was just before this call. People are still in it probably because they're now discussing how we should deal with test data on acceptance, because we do have acceptance, but it sort of passes automatically. If we want to do something with it, because, well, there was something that people from the business couldn't test, so the issue popped up, and then we look at it, and we might solve it, we might not, right? It totally depends on whether the problem is big enough and whether we want to spend time on it. So we try to improve continuously, instead of every 2 weeks have a meeting of 1 hour that everybody falls asleep at. Yeah, so we have very short cycles.
I actually like this approach very much, both the other day and today that you explained. So far what we have heard is just a positive side of it. I assume that everything has both positive and negative. So what are the challenges in being in a short cycle? when you code?
I would say all the challenges you have when having larger cycles, like if you have a 2 week cycle and you try to release every 2 weeks, I would say every problem we have, you will have in longer cycles, but bigger. So basically, because we have such short cycles, we have smaller problems. That's basically what it is. So we have less problems than people who do 2 week iterations.
So sounds like purely advantageous to use the shorter cycle.
There are,
Interesting.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then another follow-up question I have. So you've done a lot of coding. I'm just curious to know if you have used vibe coding, and how do you look at vibe coding if you assess it?
Well, I think the phrase vibe coding, so it was coined about 3/4 of a year ago. I think it's already disappeared because we tend to call it AI assisted code these days, which is pretty much the same thing, well, more or less the same thing. They come up with new terminology all the time. So basically, the question is, do we use AI to write our code and our tests? And the answer is yes, we do that every day, all of us. Do we like it? Yes, we do. So by we, I mean my team, right? Because we discuss this continuously. So we use, most of the people in my team use WebStorm in combination with Cursor. And when we do WebStorm, we have Copilot running, and I'm personally using Claude. Claude Sonnet 4 or 5 or something. And it helps me to reason about my code. So we all do this in my team. Is the code it produces always good? No, it's not. So that means that when we code and are assisted by some AI, doesn't matter which one, you always have to be really careful about what it proposes, especially when changes are bigger. It can make mistakes. But again, because we're on such short cycles, we do recognize them a lot. So we usually push very tiny changes to our code bases and to our repos, meaning that the AIs usually don't make very big changes. But on the other hand, they are getting better and better, and we tend to give them bigger and bigger tasks that a lot of the I was just looking at an example about half an hour ago of one of my teammates who refactored part of a library using Cursor, and that worked remarkably well. It also made a bunch of mistakes, but we do have tests for that too. So that means you will have to be careful with it, and that also means that more senior people are able to use it better because they are better at recognizing the mistakes it makes than if you are very junior, because then you don't always notice why it's right or why it's wrong, and that is something that especially junior people still need to learn until the AIs get so good that it doesn't matter anymore. I'm a bit in doubt whether that will happen anytime soon, but you never know. And but we use it every day, all the time. All of us.
Interesting. I follow you very much with regard to if AI is good enough on that day. I'm not sure if it's that too early. Well, what is the project that you are very much proud of?
Well, most of the projects I do, but I think that the current project that we're doing at iBoots, transforming the whole company to let's say next level e-commerce, very much AI assisted in everything people do, to be able to let the company grow towards becoming a European player. We're now active in 6 countries, but we do want to do much more, and that means we have to become way more efficient in the way we do our work, and that means we are basically re-implementing every business process we have currently, and that's a very interesting challenge, and I think we're going really fast at that, which is really cool actually. So we're able with a very small team, because we're with 13 people and we're about to grow a little bit, but not that much, and being able to build and sustain and expand a complete e-commerce platform with 14 people, and keeping it safe and keeping it fast and keeping it reliable and keeping it robust is actually it's a very interesting challenge, and we got quite good at this. So it's I'm really proud of my team here because I think we're doing an amazing job, and we have found a unique way of working that is different from everything else I've seen in the industry. Doesn't mean we're better or worse than other companies, how other people work, but how we works for us really well, and that is a very interesting way of working. And again, so if I do talks at conferences, people always love to hear about how we work, and they take away elements from it. That doesn't mean. So what I'm always saying is, if I discuss stuff at conferences, there's one slide in my deck that is called the just sharing principle, which basically says, well, what I'm about to tell or what I'm telling works in our context, but I do realize that your context is probably different, which means it doesn't work necessarily, but I can only tell you what works for us or what doesn't work for us, right? So I'm also sharing a lot of stories usually about stuff that goes wrong as well, meaning what works for us doesn't necessarily work for other people. But I'm really happy that it works for us, and I'm really proud of how we achieved that, actually. I would say my current assignment is basically the project, if you would call it a project. It's not necessarily a project because we don't do projects, but the thing that I'm most proud of.
That's nice, and I'm so excited to see the outcome when it's ready. I would follow that on LinkedIn.
Well, it's not. It's never going to be ready.
Oh, okay.
It's not a project, right? So projects have. A normal project has a scope and usually a timeline and a deadline usually and a budget, but that's not how we work because it's not a project. So we continuously evolve our platform basically, and we make it better all the time. But that's a never-ending story, right? Because there's always something you can improve on, or something you can do better, or something you can do more of or less of, etc., etc. So it's not something that ends. So it's not a project.
Okay, I have a favorite question in this show, and that is if you are given unlimited resources, meaning all the people in the world, time, money, whatever that you need, what is the AI project that you would like to pursue?
I don't have any specific, actually.
But actually, I should say you're one of the interesting people because they're starting coding at the age of 10, 11 and continue to code now. So it's kind of your passion, I guess.
Yeah. So true, but it's not. So it's not specifically related to a single domain. So there's one thing that I'm really sad about, and that is, I think it in the Netherlands, but I haven't seen it any different in other countries. Is that government IT? It's not on par with what it should be. Basically, in most countries, that there's a lot of really large IT projects in the government that fail and have always failed, and there is so much money being spent on those that goes into things that shouldn't be done, things that you can easily skip, things that you don't need, things that are just there because it needs to keep people working, and a lot of money spent on consultancies. That I'm like, I've seen projects in government that easily account for hundreds or sometimes thousands of people in the project in tech, and they fail miserably. There was a parliamentary inquiry in 2014, I think, in the Netherlands for failing IT projects, and they investigated the 37 biggest IT projects in government in the Netherlands. They all failed. And if I talk to government agencies and see what they're doing, it's actually, I would say, shameful, right? That doesn't do justice to people working in those projects, I know, but it's really sad, the huge amounts of money and effort and resources that go into government projects, IT projects, that are just failing. And I would love to see that differently. I think the sheer size of those projects is not really necessary.
I totally agree, and I think if you extend that idea to global countries, most of the countries fail massively in government level. I have no idea why, but yeah,
well,
you're right.
I do have an idea why, but it's that's something for a different discussion, right?
That's right. Okay, but nice start at least. And last but not least, this podcast is called Beyond the Tech. What does Beyond the Tech meaning to you?
Well, a lot of things actually. So my life has always been full of tech, but my life has also always been around For instance, my kids, my relationships, my parents, my friends, traveling. I love traveling a lot. I'm actually about to go to Morocco next week for a conference, and I am in a lucky opportunity to be able to travel a lot because I get invited to do talks at conferences, which means I get to travel. Right, so this month I'm going to Marrakesh and to Berlin, and then I'm pretty much done for this year, I suppose. And but for next year, there's already a bunch of trips coming up, and I love traveling. I love getting out of an airplane or out of a car or out of a bus or a train or whatever, right? I like all means of transport, and being somewhere totally different, right? Where it smells different, the colors are different, everything's different, people are different, and that's always been a large part of my life too. So beyond tech, that is what I do, right?
Beyond tech is human, and recreation of human is absolutely important. I totally agree. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope our listeners did as well. Thank you so much for your contribution. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sander Hoogendoorn. Thank you.
Thank you.